what are you going to do with that cash flow? I mean, some people can invest in a real estate, or you want to invest in the markets. I personally found doing strategic acquisitions to help your business grow that fit your model.
Hey, welcome to 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. We're a father-son leadership podcast where we talk with other lifelong learners about solving big problems and making an impact. Yeah, that's pretty much what we do. And, I'm getting messages.
You're backwards, though.
Well, I thought I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb and it's sitting here buzzing at me. So we will just take
Tell Mom hi. Because we know she's who gets through the Do Not Disturb. She'll call me next.
I put it on the buzz too, so it wouldn't make noise. So I don't know what I did wrong there, but you know what? By the way, Miss Suzanne got a new phone, so I don't know if she's figured out how to call me yet. We may
take a bit of time.
Be able to, yeah. It's one of those things, the new toy. So she's probably playing games on it instead of calling me. But yeah. So wow, that felt very flat. Because it's just one of those days. We're dealing with some weather. But the good kind of weather this time of year. I mean. Hello, folks. If it's wintertime, it's going to be cold. I don't know why I need a news alert to tell me that it's going to get below freezing or something like that. I always find that funny. And you know what? Our good friend Josh Davis joining us from north of the border.
Yeah. Do
y'all's weather folks do that crazy stuff? Is like, oh my gosh, it's January and we're going to get snow.
I mean, I'm in Vancouver, so it's a pretty balanced climate. It's -1 right now, but it'll fluctuate between 0, -1 up to by 10. So, but my wife's family's from northern BC, so when we were up there at Christmas time, we were at -20. So we're used to cold and snow. We play lots of hockey, and so yeah, it's all good for us.
And folks. He's just proven that he's a Canadian. He's talking in Celsius.
Yes.
I was going to say, though, it got so darn cold, the Celsius and Fahrenheit almost started lining up in those negatives. I think -50 is about the same in both.
No, it actually is 40. For those of you who are looking for the trivia question at the bar on Tuesday night, just let you know, as a Alaskan veteran, that -40 Fahrenheit and -40 centigrade are the same temperature. So do the math on that one, y'all.
All right.
Yeah. Well, you know what? This is we got to get flowing here because maybe it is. We're like molasses up there in northern Alberta, aren't we? Yeah. That's what's going on here today. So. We got to get some moving. Josh, man, I am so excited to learn more and understand and help folks understand what is it about scaling and acquisition? Because you did it, but now you shifted to helping others do it. What was the catalyst, the decision? What was that thing that was like? You know what? Let me help other folks have the success that I've had.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I could give you a really long-winded answer, but I'll try to keep it tight.
We're going hockey, so we got to look for that 5-hole, man.
Okay. I got you. I was. Both my grandfathers were pretty successful entrepreneurs. My one grandfather was a deal maker in the mining industry, so he did acquisitions and put different projects together. So kind of getting exposure from that as a kid, and then eventually I started working in the mining industry, learned about M&A and acquisitions, and putting assets together and turning things around and getting lifts by intellectual knowledge and technology and teams and all that stuff. So I eventually branched off on my own from there. My wife and I, we started a company a week after our honeymoon. And
did you come up with the idea on the honeymoon?
You know what? We were talking about it before we got married, and then we had one other business partner. We basically just said like, "Hey, we need to focus on getting married, go on our honeymoon, and we'll make a decision when we get back." So we had an awesome time. Went to Italy, first time for me over to Europe. So it was an amazing experience, and then we decided we were going to go into a venture together. So I mean, looking back on it now, I don't know if I recommend starting a business a week after your honeymoon, but we did, and we made it through it. And yeah, I mean, the quick story in that is we built up a logistics company. We did a number of acquisitions. We built some technology around that. My wife is very systems operations minded, so she kind of built our technology and operating system, which really helped us attract talent into the space. I mean, this was over 10 years ago now, and especially in Canada, the transportation trucking industry, it was still pretty old school and not, at least in Canada, not super technology driven. I mean, now technology is huge. The US, you guys were using, really good technology 10 years ago as well. So we got some tips from some of the companies down there, and we built and scaled it, did a number of acquisitions. And then we made the decision to sell. So from startup to exit, we sold to one of the largest transportation companies in North America. They were US private equity backed. So that was kind of my kickoff into, doing acquisitions, a bit of a roll-up strategy, and then exiting early on. So that was part of the story where, even the selling part, I mean, I talk about this quite a bit. When you're building and scaling the business, you don't have any kids. Our whole life revolves around the business. We can work 12 hours a day, everything revolves around it, date nights, just doing everything we can to keep building and scaling the business. But kind of a turning point for us was when we were expecting. So we have 2 kids now. So our daughter, and that just kind of changed our mindset. Like, what are we going to keep doing? The business is scaling rapidly. We needed more capital to keep continuing to fund the growth. And then that was kind of the catalyst for us. And then our other partner, he had some other things that he wanted to focus on as well. We were doing some real estate and things together. So we made the decision to sell. And I guess I'll finish up the story. You can ask me any questions about that. But basically, I worked with the private equity company for 2 years, and the main company that we were under worked closely with the CEO and CFO. And I learned a lot about bigger acquisitions, learned a lot about, finance and budgeting. I mean, I'm an entrepreneurial guy, so I think some of the finance meetings and things like that were a little bit overkill for me personally. But it was a great experience. Learned a lot from those guys. And then, after my 2-year transition, I stepped down, and which was really tough, building up a company and selling it. It's like building it's like a child, it's like a family member. So that was hard to say bye to, people that you've been in the trenches with. And so, I exited out of there, went through, it's funny, once I stepped down and private equity company emails are shut down. You're basically kind of, that's it.
That's got to leave like a gap. It's got to feel weird.
Man, Otis, it was, I wasn't, I mean, that's one thing I talk to owners about if you are going to sell is like, what are you going to do next? Because once that's done and your emails are shut down, you have hundreds of people reaching out to you. You kind of go through this kind of, who am I? What is my identity? I'm no longer, a CEO of a reasonably sized company. Fortunately for me, we had another baby just before that. So we had my son. So I had 2 young kids, 2.5 and a newborn. So yeah, I spent, 6 months just connecting with them, being present. We did some family trips. And then, about 6 months after that, I think my wife was getting sick of having me around the house too much and gave me a bit of a friendly boot, just saying, dear, we love having you around and we want you to be present and, at all the things, but you like to build and scale. You like to develop leaders. So now it's time to get going. So, I went through a bit of a process, connected with some mentors and my old executive coach, and decided that we would set up a family office, our own capital, so we don't take any outside investment. And we'd start investing and acquiring businesses that fit our criteria, and using our operating system that we built through acquisitions. We did a number of turnaround situations and building technology and streamlining things. And so that's how it started. So we did that about 3.5 years ago. And then through that, I realized, in doing investments and acquisitions into small businesses, not every business makes sense, and not every business owner is ready to either sell or to have a partner to take an investment. Because if you invest in a company, obviously we want to see, some scaling, some return on investment. And so, one of those things going through that, I felt, bad for these, business owners, entrepreneurs, that it wasn't a right fit for an acquisition or an investment. So that's where we came up with the idea, hey, let's build a consulting division. We'll still do acquisitions and investments, but let's help these small business owners, put the right people, the systems, the processes in place to either help them scale or to prepare the business to sell, rather than just, going to market, going to an M&A advisor and trying to get, trying to sell your business. There's some real key things you got to put into place in order to get ready to sell. So that's, I said I wasn't going to be long-winded, but that's my long-winded answer of how I got into acquisitions, and now I'm helping other founders and entrepreneurs.
I'd love if you could give a bit of a nuanced assessment of what acquisitions is, because I think it's one of those areas of business where it's like, on one hand, the capitalist in me, if you will, you look at it, it's like, hey, look, economics, things grow, things fade, new people come in, like that, they all just make sense, right? It's a natural growth of the business. Yeah. On the other hand, acquisitions and like BlackRock, or like, those big ones, it is this big boogeyman that's destroying single family homes, or take your example there, right? Totally. How the hell do you square those two, and like what is the nuanced take that exists between those 2 points?
Yeah, I would say, we're not big private equity, and especially for us, like we don't need to do any deals. Like, if I wanted to, I could be a stay-at-home dad for the rest of my life, but I actually enjoy business, and I enjoy scaling and doing the right thing. And, obviously business got to grow. You got to have profits. You got to have cash flows. That's one thing. But, ultimately we want to get involved businesses that, fit our values and, are high integrity, got good reputations and stuff like that. So from a small business perspective, I think acquisitions is once you get to a certain level and you got enough cash flow, what are you going to do with that cash flow? Some people can invest in a real estate, or you want to invest in the markets. I personally found doing, strategic acquisitions to help your business grow that fit your model. So one of the things we always look at is, what is a business that we can acquire that can give us the leverage and the access to maybe another service that we can cross-sell services, or where can we get into another territory that we're not currently in, or where can we get access to some more ideal customer profiles. So buying a business for customer profiles. So the way that we look at acquisitions is we look for one with a high integrity owner, it's got a good reputation, has been in business for at least 10 years, has a good customer base. And our value that we bring into that business is, we have a technology company, so we can streamline all the technology, the tech stack, making sure everything talks to each other. We've got a human capital division that does recruits, does leadership development, so we can bring in the people side of the business. I mean, that's the first thing you always got to start with is the people, then the systems. And then my wife and I on the strategic part of the business. So what's the plan? What's the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan? So as far as acquisitions for us, we do it to help our businesses scale. And then ultimately, there's a lot of business owners that, just don't have an exit path. When you're a small business, you don't have enough EBITDA where you're going to attract all these, big buyers. I think it's important to have guys like myself that is looking to buy small businesses and give these guys an opportunity to exit, for a fair deal that works for both sides. So that's the way that I look at acquisitions. It's a tool to help us grow, and we've been quite successful at putting multiple different companies together and then cross-selling services. So I look at it a little bit differently than a larger private equity that's just focused on pooling things together, getting the lift, focus on EBITDA. We're doing it for other reasons.
So your excuse me, your first business that you and your wife bought, or maybe I'm remembering wrong, so help me out. I thought it was like struggling, but it sounds like now you're focused more on not really struggling businesses, not like, I'm about to go bankrupt and close the door and you come in and rain some process on and everything goes right. Could you just help us out a little bit of that differentiator? And if my memory's serving me right.
Yeah, no, actually, you're right. So that's a good point, Otis. So when we first started out, because we don't come from money, everything was invested by my partners and my wife and I into the business. So we couldn't do big acquisitions. I mean, we were using bank debt as much as we could to continue to fund the growth. So we were looking for opportunities, distressed businesses that were going through challenges, and then we would just get in there with our sweat equity and people, systems, process, sales, and scale it. So, early in the career, we did that because we had to. That definitely made us, I think really strong at turning around companies and putting the right people in the right seats, the right systems. Back then it was just out of necessity. But that really kind of helped us develop how to do this the right way. So that was a good learning experience. Now, we're actually buying businesses that have strong customer bases, good reputations, have profit. But we still are looking for businesses that we can come in and add value to. So the people side, the technology side. So we're still looking for, the business can still have a little hair on it and some challenges. We definitely like that, but I'm not doing any more full on turnaround situations where businesses are losing, $50,000 a month. Those were very difficult, challenging days, and I just don't need to do that anymore.
Well, there's also the risk reward of that too, right?
Yes.
Whether you even mentioned, and I think that's a great point for folks to hear, is you and your wife are at a point in life where, if we end up living in the car for 6 months, it's okay because it's just you and I.
Totally.
Yeah. There's a risk that changes. Go ahead, Cam.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Actually, I think that's like another layer of nuanced acquisitions that a lot of people miss. Is like at first, Dad, you're asking about distressed businesses, and immediately the mind goes, it's the mom and pop shop down the street, and Josh is firing them all and taking the printers and selling them, and that's how he made it. And it's like, no, there's a difference. It is more so the risk and reward. What did you say, Josh?
Totally. So like in those situations, like we weren't going in to like cut everything. We were going in there to try to save jobs and fix processes. And obviously going through that, not everything works out perfectly. So there are some transitions that, need to happen. But I mean, in most of our deals, we were able to save, a lot of jobs and give people a lot of career growth and opportunities. I mean, that was our focus. We're not cutthroat, buyers. We care about people. We've got, strong family values, but ultimately, if you don't have the right person in the right seat and their values don't align, I mean, you got to make tough calls. So, so as far as that goes, we were acquiring distress companies because that's all we could do. So it was something that we needed to find companies that we could get access to customers and get us into new markets. And then, it was pretty awesome once we got in there, the amount of jobs and things that we were able to save and create opportunities for growth. That was really exciting once we kind of worked through that.
What do you think is more fun, building something from scratch or coming in and kind of jump starting it like that? Because I could see it going both ways, because those both are exciting places to be.
I think at the beginning, since I've done both, I really enjoyed the startup phase, just figuring out, how you're going to position yourself and the sales and solving customer problems and, how you're going to get that scale. So I think that was really exciting for us at the beginning. And at the beginning, it was really hard to try to map through that. But then once we got into the acquisitions, I just really saw the power of having the right systems, the technology, and the people to get into the business. And if the business has a good customer base, I just found I found that kind of fixing a piece of the puzzle, improving service, and then scaling that way, as opposed to I built sales teams and go after new business. But a lot of the times in these small businesses, there's a lot of diamonds in the rough opportunities to turn customers into reoccurring revenue or cross-selling services, or making them anchor accounts that if you don't have that experience, sometimes, you're just, and especially for founders, if you're just in the weeds and you're just servicing the business, and, if you aren't able to step back and think strategically of how can you grow with your existing customer base. So originally, I really liked the thrill of the startup, and I've done a number of startups. We've done 5 startups over the years. But now I really like the acquisition piece, taking something that's got the foundation, got a good customer base, and how do you kind of do some tweaks to take it to the next level?
Have you figured out a way to systematize your due diligence, if you will, so that you can really nail that process?
Yeah. So, at the beginning, it was very sloppy, and we couldn't afford to have, really good advisors on that, lawyers' bills and accountant bills and things like that. So
you and your wife sitting there reading contracts at night and going through books at night?
Pretty much, yeah. My wife was actually more on the ops side. My other partner, him and I, we would go through as much as we could. But really, it's funny. We weren't really going through a lot of the legal side. We were, a little bit naive at the time, but just focus on the customer base. Is it a strong customer? Are these can we get in there, build relationships, and scale it? So at the beginning, it was that. Now we do have a system. I've got a CFO. I've got a really strong accounting and legal firm dealing with the partners there. And so, my internal team will take it as far as we can before we get our accounting outside accountants and lawyers involved. We worked really hard at streamlining that process to figure out, is this a business that makes sense for us to acquire? But dialing in that process is really key to try to make decisions as quickly as possible, because you don't want to waste so much time. And being an entrepreneur and building something from nothing, I just have so much respect for founders that I don't want to waste their time either. So we move really quickly to figure out, is this a go or no go?
Mm-hmm. I wanted to shift gears a little bit into talking about scaling and scaling smart. Not being reckless about it. I was on a coaching call earlier, and we had a 30-minute conversation about this with no answers, lots of wisdom but no answers. So Josh, no offense, I'm probably expecting similar type of thing from you. But with all of your experience between your businesses and people you've worked with, how has your perspective changed on scaling And, that kind of like the hustle culture, the grind of like you were saying, like you and your wife were at the beginning of like, we're going to go. And even if we got to live in the car for 6 months, we got to figure this thing out. And there's doing that. And then you have kids. And now it's like, okay, I still want to grow the business, but I don't want to spend all of that time on it. I've joked a bunch on the show of like the amount of people have come on our show that have made hundreds of millions of dollars. And they go, Cam, took me 30 years, but I've realized family is what matters. I'm like, well, yeah, it's easy. You already have the 100 million. Like and then for us young entrepreneurs, it's like, okay, how the hell do I balance those two and still push forward without going crazy along the way? So, like I said, it's a hard one to answer. But what wisdom do you have on that, Josh?
Ooh, yeah, I could go in a number of different ways, but I think the one thing I learned, like when we were building the company, like we were just focused on like revenue is going to solve most problems, bring in the sales, we'll figure it out. And so that really helped us, especially out of the gates. But then, going through that and, the whole business revolving around us, like, our whole date nights, everything, like couldn't go on vacations, like barely paying ourselves anything. Like the business is growing and scaling, or go from 3 of us to 100 people in kind of our head office. So yeah, like people looking at that thinks like, we must have been making tons of money. I mean, on paper we were, but really every dollar was going back into reinvesting into the business. So the one thing that I learned that I would have done differently back then is to really focus on the systems. I think people, don't value how important, streamlining systems, having scorecards, making sure that you have the right people in the right seats, making sure, you're hiring for, people based on attitude and character and values and not just skill set. And so that was one thing in this next go around, for us, especially since we had our second child, was like, I still want to work hard. I want to build and scale. I want to have an impact, but I don't want to miss the moments that matter most for my family. So what I realized is in any of these deals or any of these companies we're growing, like I cannot be the bottleneck in the business. So I can't be involved in, all the big sales meetings, all the firefighting. I got to make sure that we put the right people in the right seats, give them, clear expectations of what great looks like, give them a clear scorecard, and then empower them to build the business, build their division, making sure that if you have the right people, you show them what great looks like, you empower them to build the business, it can go to heights that you can never imagine. And so we definitely were doing that, throughout our time in the first business, but I've really mastered that in the last 3 years, is just really focusing on the right people, the right systems, and then letting those people build up the company. And that part for me, I've just seen the power of that. And now, really focusing on the things that really light me up, like strategy, acquisitions, developing leaders, things like that. And, getting the right people to, run sales, run technology. And then, I think the biggest difference now in the past 3 years is I try to fire myself constantly. I got to get out of the way. I got to not be the bottleneck. And I got to get the right people and empower them and make sure that, they're reaching their goals, their financial goals, their 5-year goals, their career goals. And so that's more of what I'm focused on. And so it's hard at the beginning, but I think thinking about that as you're building and scaling, early on, what can you do to get out of the weeds, to be not the bottleneck, and empower the right people to make decisions? I think that's really important. So I would have done some things significantly differently 10 years ago. But that's how I'm able to continue to build and scale. We got 6 different operating companies. I still work hard. I still miss dinners and things, once in a while. But as much as possible, I'm, there at all the kids' games and events and things like that.
I know it might be kind of an arbitrary guesstimate of an answer to this, but I am curious of perspective, Josh. Looking back over that 10 years, how did the business's growth get hurt, if you will, by having a more balanced life? Like, are you like, okay, yeah, we probably could have done 10% more. Zooming out a little bit, what is the oh my gosh, opportunity cost to that?
The opportunity cost to not.
The opportunity cost to being balanced and, frankly, being a good dad.
Yeah, you know what? It's thinking about it, like, because when we were building it, we didn't have kids, so our focus was on the business and the employees. And then now with having kids, it's I kind of look at it as like I give back to my leadership team. So like I always tell them, like, I'll invest in you. I'll invest you as a leader, get you coaching, send you to events, like do all the things. Like I could do it myself. And I've been running businesses for almost 20 years now. But instead of me doing it, empowering people, developing them as leaders, helping them grow in their career, that's the way that I look at it now. So that gives me, I still work hard. I mean, I still have long days. I think I'll always work hard. But it gives me the flexibility to have a little bit of balance and be able to not miss every dinner and, miss those events and the things that matter most to my wife and I. But it all comes down to giving that right person in the right seat that opportunity and really invest in them. And I mean, the cool thing about that is, early on, I thought I needed to do everything. I was the best at sales. I was the best at problem solving. And then once I really started investing in individual people, I mean, they were able to do things that I could never do. So, that's the one thing, is just like humbling yourself. Like, I mean, maybe they're not going to do it exactly the way that you do it. But even if they can do it 80% of the way there, then you being 100% involved, that's where you get the ability to do things that can drive the business forward. And sorry, I'll talk about this part too, which is really important. And this is what I say to my team all the time too. If I can get out of this seat and I do another acquisition, like there's always new opportunities that come out of that. So it's more of like shifting to focus on the things that really light me up and is going to drive the business forward. And then everything else, let other people learn and grow through that. I mean, I've been doing it for almost 20 years. So that's a big thing I'm really focused in. I try to fire myself out of roles all the time. I do that on a weekly basis.
Was there a nudge or an event or something that helped you push you over that edge to that attitude? Because so many, matter of fact, I was talking with the CEO founder over the weekend, and he was like, I'm the best guy that does this. I can do that better than them.
Yeah.
And he has that, he's got people that do it. And he was kind of pushing back on the guy saying, well, we could do, it's going to take us, X amount of time and Y amount of dollars. And he's like, no, that's bullshit. And he'll go down there and do it in less time and for less dollars in that sort of sense. What did you have experience in that? Because I don't think he is, and a friend of mine uses this term, the key man syndrome with your business. He hasn't realized that he's limited in that, at least from my interaction with him so far. So just curious, did you have something that, wife said, hey, dude, little kid said, Daddy, are you coming to the game tonight? And you're like, what happened, man? How'd you shift?
That's a good question. I think one of the things, a thing just being a kid, seeing my grandfather, fly all over the world, and he's a great grandfather, but I mean, as a father, he was so busy. I don't think he was around too much for, my father and his siblings. So it was one thing I kind of watched and saw a little bit of that. And, I didn't want to be like, Pop, never around for the kids, but because I love my time with my grandfather. I mean, I was fortunate enough he ended up unfortunately getting cancer, but I took care of him for a couple of years, and it was just such a great experience getting close with him. That was one thing just kind of put in my head, is like, I want to be there for my kids and have that relationship and not everything be focused on business. So that those seeds were kind of in there. but yeah, I think a turning point was, reading different books, Good to Great, Built to Sell, different operating systems, just going through that and realizing like leadership is really like the ceiling of the business. So like if I continued and my partner continued to be involved in so many things, there's only so many hours in a day. And so it took time to release some control to different team members. And yeah, I don't want to pretend it was like overnight, immediately, I was just this amazing leader that could delegate and empower. I was a total control freak and, thought I needed to be in everything. And I think one story, we landed a number of very large enterprise accounts, and these were very demanding accounts. And, they had my personal cell phone. I would fly down, 6 hours away from us, meet with them, problem solve. I was always involved in all the meetings. It was one of my first large accounts that I landed. And then as the business continued to grow and scale, I couldn't be involved in all these meetings and them calling me all the time and solving problems and getting involved in the operation team. And so one kind of small step I made, I built an account manager and I handed it off to this girl on our team and empowered her and trained her. And I was really nervous. Like I was like, man, if we lose this very high multi-million-dollar account, we would be in trouble. And so yeah, I just worked with her on account managing. And kind of what hit me a year later, I flew down to Toronto, had our yearly kind of check-in, and usually it was like, we had really good relationship and we go out for lunch, and it was the quickest, yearly meeting we've ever had. They didn't really care about going for lunch with me, and they were just so happy with, the service of the team. And I realized that person that was running that account management, they could service that client way better than me. There was, they didn't have all the things that I was dealing with, overall for the business. So that was really, I remember flying back on the plane being like, wow, like if you put a person that can really service the customer, and I'm not running around with, my head cut off trying to, do everything, that how powerful that is. And so that, I mean, if you want to think about a moment, that was the moment where it's like, yeah, I don't need to be involved in everything. You just got to get the right person to fix or to work on that solution.
I think that's definitely one of them, but I'm curious to hear what are some of the lessons learned from the acquisition side of the business that you think could help that solopreneur just getting started up to not necessarily set themselves up for a successful acquisition or successful sale, but more so like the actual like business lessons of, hey, if you start thinking about this thing, then it makes it easier, and then it also helps you when you need to sell later on. But it gives you some tools to get started as that solopreneur. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I do talk about this a lot. I think everyone should be building your business to sell, even if you're not planning to sell. Because if you think about it from that standpoint, that's how you kind of eliminate yourself from some of the key processes. Because a buyer doesn't really want to buy a business that relies on the founder, all the customers, have all the strong relationships with the customers. They're involved in all the sales and, the firefighting and all that. So I think as a solopreneur, you want to be thinking about that. So if one day I want to sell, what do I need to do? So, one first practical step is getting a really strong executive assistant. So that's one thing that I always talk to founders about, like how strong of an executive assistant do you have that are pulling off all those administrative tasks off your plate, managing your inbox, managing your calendar, taking all the things, making sure you can organize your day to focus on the things that really focus on driving the business forward. I think that's a total game changer. If you find that really strong executive assistant that can buy back your time is very important. And then, as if you're thinking about it, what do I need to put into place to one day exit the company? If you build it right, you're hiring the right people that are empowered in their role to grow their division or grow whatever they're doing. And then you have right systems and then you turn into like managing scorecards, like making you're still involved in the business, but instead of like the firefighting part, you build a scorecard around that to make sure that that's being executed the way that you would do it. So I think the key thing is building the business as if you're going to sell. And I say, if you do it the right way, you actually might not even want to sell. And that's the thing what I find with founders is like, if you get the people and the systems piece right, you can buy back your time and be able to do the things that I'm doing where you're not missing the moments that matter most. You're not getting, I mean, I joke about this, but, I'd be, with my wife and baby, we'd be trying to go to the beach and, customers would call me during COVID, like doing transportation, like where's, the truckloads of toilet paper, we're out of toilet paper, the big, same North American, grocery stores and things like that. And so, it's just thinking about if you put the right system into place and it doesn't fully rely on you, you could potentially buy back your time where you're actually really enjoying running the business. Hopefully that answers the question.
That does, definitely.
We have a good friend who's done that and has really refined the art of hiring a general manager to do that. And there's a lot of truth to that. It's like, hey, why sell it? It's the thing of, I like to think of business when it comes to selling an acquisition, kind of like a real estate move. Well, if I like my house, but I want another house, I want a place in Florida where it's nice and warm, and has moisture. Because we all know Tucson's warm, but doesn't have moisture.
Didn't have to get personal.
My complexion and my skin looks so much better in Florida. If we want that sort of a thing, I don't necessarily have to sell the house, right?
Yep.
And I think that's such an important thing to understand, because everybody talks in the startup world, in particular, is what's your exit plan? What's your exit plan?
Totally.
Well, that doesn't mean you have to sell your business. Doesn't mean you have to stop doing your business. It just means, well, maybe you want to use your time to do other things. Maybe you want to surf. Maybe you want to play old boy hockey or old boy rugby, right? So, you mentioned your grandpa really kind of planted the seed for you in the entrepreneur world lifestyle. What's a lesson that you can remember going, wow, and putting it in your pocket as a kid, or even when you were taking care of him, towards the end of his life? What's some lessons that you can share from Grandpa?
Sure. I mean, so many good lessons from Grandpa. I would say, one of the things that I always really appreciated about him was, even, in his 70s, the amount of people former employees that would work for him, that would call him, that would still come and visit him. Like, it was I remember just watching that as a kid, like, wow, my pop has so many friends and people that, that care about him and still come to him for advice. So I would just sit there as a kid and just sit at the table and hear him talking to his geologist about, mining in the middle of nowhere and all the challenges. And so that was one thing that I saw. I really, and as I got older and I learned, how many people him and my grandmother helped, develop their careers and, be able to get the financial, benefits and things with working with them. I just saw them, help a lot of people and then still have those relationships, even though he's been out of business for 20 years. They're still coming and visiting him. And then even, when he passed away, the cards that I would get from, successful people in our city that I didn't even know, even knew my grandfather, and, sending these cards and writing stories about, going on these kind of adventures with him. And he was a sailor too. So he'd sail to Hawaii, Tahiti, Mexico, like he'd go on these adventures. So, I think that was one thing as a kid, just seeing those relationships And if you do things the right way and treat people well, you can have lifelong relationships. So that was one for sure. Another one that it took me a while to actually fully understand this, but I think there's a lot of parallels. When he was sick with cancer, my grandmother had passed away, and he was quite sad, and he wanted to, and he had cancer as well, and he wanted to go on like one last big sailing adventure, and he's very adventurous. Him and my grandmother kind of sailed together as well, and so he wanted to go back down to the Sea of Cortez around Mexico, and so that was a plan. And I sailed with him in like small trips around our city, and things like that, but nothing. I was never allowed to go deep sea, and so my parents wouldn't let me. His adventures, going over 70-foot waves and getting struck by lightning, the mass, and it was like always something crazy would happen on his adventures. So I don't know why I wasn't thinking about that when we were planning this next trip. But I was in my early 20s, and I was really excited to go deep sea with him. And so we did that. I had a couple of my buddies from school and one of his friends that had been sailing trips. And the first 3-4 days we're catching fish. It was like out of the movies. It was just like amazing. We're having great chats, and it was kind of that picture perfect trip. And then eventually the typical pop adventure turned into a complete nightmare. Winds kicked up. I mean, I don't know how big the waves were. I mean, maybe they were 40 feet, 50 feet. They felt like 100 feet. And we got a really treacherous storm. And then to make things even worse, I went down to his bunk, and I couldn't wake him up. And so on, like, going through that, we didn't have the right crew. My grandfather wasn't, he was totally out. He didn't pass away at that point, but couldn't wake him up. I thought he was dead. We had my grandfather's friend who was steering the boat. He was the most experienced, but he was totally frozen. He didn't know what to do. And then two of my buddies that, we know nothing about sailing. And so, fortunately, we're very fortunate to get out of that. Eventually, 6-7 hours later, we got out of I don't know if it was the eye of the storm, and it just kind of went down to nothing. The funny part about that was, he comes up the stair. I thought he had passed away, but at the end of the storm, he comes up the stairs and he sees the booms broken off, the sails ripped down, and everything smashed. And he's basically like, "What the hell did you guys do to my boat?"
Classic.
And we were just like, "You have no idea what we've been going through the past 6 hours." But I think one of the learning lessons from that is storms, test the boat, test the crew, having the right leadership. So there's a lot of parallels in that in leadership. So making sure, you have the right crew, the right team members, the right plan, the right training. Like, we didn't have any of that. We were basically like, grandpa sailed, for 30 years. He has his one buddy, we'll be fine. And obviously him and his, last days of his life, he ended up passing away a couple weeks later. But just going back in that lesson is just making sure, you're going to always hit storms in life. And, even for me, my pop was my hero and my mentor. And, through the stage of life, he's not there anymore. And, I've had to kind of step up for my family and, take the reins from Pop and learn from his lessons. And, so that, very situation that we're really lucky to get out alive. I think about it a lot, just thinking about the parallels of, the ship and the storms and how we can prepare for that, because ultimately in life, you're always going to have storms. There's always going to be challenges. There's sicknesses, issues with employees, downturns, trade agreements, all that stuff. There's always going to be challenges, but do you have the right team and the right kind of strategy to kind of get through those storms? So those are two things that I think about my pop a lot in.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love the analogy there. And the great story of a great man. So that's cool. What'd you do to my boat? I can just imagine the looks on y'all's faces when that happened. That must have been awesome.
It was, yeah,
man. Yeah, and a lot of laughs about that afterwards too, I'm sure.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
And I'll just, what it all comes back to, and what I learned, and what I want to emphasize today on what I learned is as people. One of my favorite philosophies I adopted in life 30-40 years ago is mission first, people always. And you can't do it without the people. I mean, you even say it on your I think it was on your website. I thought I read that people first, and how important the people are, and taking care of those people. So that is, just love reemphasizing that. Camden, how about you? Other than having a little guest appearance, sneak in the room.
Come here, buddy. You're okay. There he goes. So he woke up. He heard his little sister playing around out there. So he had to come let his cries be known on the podcast. So that's 2 episodes in a row he's made an appearance. Let it be known. For me, I think it's silly and simple, but Josh talking about like that boogeyman idea of acquisitions and just how you said it, of just like, I was there to save jobs. I think it's just such a clean way of explaining, like, it's not all BlackRock and the crazy stuff out there that we think about. It's like, no, there's a lot of people out there that are, look, I'm going in to try to save this business and save those jobs. And I think that's just a really great way of painting that picture.
Awesome. Josh, how about you, man? What'd you learn?
I mean, it's funny. I haven't, just even thinking about that story from my grandfather, just like, storms don't just test your boat, they test your crew. So that's just one thing that just even thinking about right now is like, in business, you are going to have storms. There's going to be, economic, political, there's a lot of things that are kind of out of your control. But if you got the right team, and sticking together, you can weather storms. Things come in cycles, just like, the storm that we were in. We thought it was going to never end, but it did. We ended up getting out of that. And so, I think just a reminder for myself as business does throw storms at it, just to make sure we got the right crew and sticking together and working through it.
Awesome. Josh, how do folks find you and learn more about what y'all got going on?
Yeah, I'm active on LinkedIn, so you can follow me at Scaling with Josh Davis on LinkedIn, or you can go to my website. It's jldavisenterprises.com. Got a lot of resources on there, and you can book a consultation with our team. If there's anything that we can do to help support businesses, it's definitely something we're very passionate about, helping people build business the right way, and for founders not to miss the moments that matter most. Awesome.
Yeah. And that doesn't just matter in the business. It also matters in home. So, Josh, man, really appreciate you spending some time with us and sharing some great family stories.
Thanks, Otis. Thanks, Cam. I appreciate it. Appreciate being here. Thanks, guys.
Cam, run us out.
All right. Thank y'all for listening to today's episode of 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. And a special thanks to our guest, Josh Davis, for joining us today. Remember, you can watch full episodes of the show on YouTube at 10X Your Team. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to pass it along to other lifelong learners in your tribe so they can enjoy it too. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. As always, that full archive of episodes available at www.10xyourteam.net. Thanks again. We'll see y'all next time.